The state-run media in Egypt reports that President Hosni Mubarak has resigned as the head of the ruling National Democratic Party. Sources say this means that he cannot stand for the presidential election in September. Other top party members have also reportedly stepped down. They include Party Secretary General Safat al-Sharif and Mubarak's powerful son Gamal, long expected to succeed his father. A relative liberal, Hosni Mubarak, is appointed as the party's new Secretary General. But outside the Tahrir Square in Cairo, Mubarak's decision to quit the party post has no effect on the pro-democracy supporters. For the 12th day in a row, thousands of them insisted that Mubarak should give up his presidency. Braving rain, they had held evening prayers at the place that has become the epicenter of violent clashes between pro-democracy and pro-Mubarak supporters. An army general came to the square to talk to protesters, even as the unprecedented move entered a delicate phase. The protesters fear that if they end the demonstration, the Mubarak regime would only bring about cosmetic reforms and continue in power. Meanwhile, Israeli President Shimon Peres showed his support to the embattled Egyptian president, saying that his contribution to peace would never be forgotten. Peres was speaking at the European Friends of Israel conference in Jerusalem yesterday.
To follow the attacks against President Mubarak, I know him for many years throughout his presidency, and I credit him with one of the persons who saved many lives by preventing war in the Middle East. He saved life of Egyptians, of Arabs, of Israelis by not allowing to renew a war. No matter what is now the criticism against him, his contribution for peace, as far as I am concerned, will never be forgotten.
Meanwhile, America yesterday swung its support behind Egypt's Vice President Omar Suleiman and the political transition he is leading, calling for a process of orderly reform. The policy made clear by Hillary Clinton at the Munich Security Conference was the latest sign of steps by the US and senior members of the Egyptian military to nudge President Hosni Mubarak aside in an effort to contain the potential for street violence. The US says it wants the transition to be transparent and inclusive and the process to be concrete steps towards orderly elections in the month of September. British Prime Minister David Cameron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel also spoke at the same conference and echoed the call for an orderly transition and cautioned against early elections. Now, in an exclusive interview with the Brody File, American Republican leader Sarah Palin criticized US President Barack Obama for his handling of the situation in Egypt, saying, and I quote, "This was a 3 a.m. White House phone call and it went right to the answering machine," unquote. Now, her answers about Egypt are the first time that she's spoken publicly about the situation itself. Speaking to the Christian Broadcasting Network's David Brody, Sarah Palin asked, "Is it going to be the Muslim Brotherhood? We should not stand for any radical Islamists." Palin says that US needs to find out who was behind all the turmoil to be able to make good decisions. Now, hundreds of Palestinians in the West Bank city of Ramallah demonstrated yesterday to show solidarity with the pro-democracy protesters in Egypt. In fact, the protesters gathered at the Al-Manara Square to express support for Egyptian protesters, holding placards and chanting slogans against the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. A leading member of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Hanan Ashrawi, called for solidarity with all the Arab people yearning for freedom, human rights, rule of law, good governance and democracy.